Our next speaker is serving as international champion on adaptation and resilience for the COP26 presidency. It is a great pleasure to hand over now to the British Minister for Business and Energy, Anne-Marie Trevelyan. Welcome.
Thank you so very much. And thank you to the German government for hosting this event. And my personal thanks to Svenja Schulz for her leadership and her continued collaboration with the UK, particularly in this important year for climate action. It was through Svenja's leadership that Germany joined the Powering Past Coal Alliance, the global initiative that I co-chair with my Canadian counterpart, Jonathan Wilkinson. Germany has now been an active member of the Powering Past Coal Alliance for the last year and a half, working with us on the world stage to advance the transition from unabated coal power generation to clean energy, which is a core priority for the UK's up-and-coming both G7 and COP26 presidencies. The PPCA now has over 100 members, and at the PPCA summit earlier this month, we gained another 10 members, demonstrating that the pace of the transition really is increasing. If we are to meet the Paris Agreement goals, global coal power generation must fall by around 80% and end completely in developed countries by 2030. Setting an early date for a just, job-rich transition away from coal is a win-win and must be the crucial first step for countries to reach their net zero commitments. So my thanks once again to my German colleagues for your continued support, and thank you for hosting me today. Climate change is unequivocally one of the biggest challenges that we face. In their 2019 special report, the IPCC warned us of the dangers of exceeding global temperature rises of the 1.5 degrees. It was then that calls for countries to adopt net zero climate targets began to grow. Yet 2020 saw record temperatures. We saw fires raging across the world, and we saw storms intensifying. And in this context, the coronavirus pandemic has overtaken as another pressing global challenge. However, as we begin to look ahead to life after the pandemic, reaching net zero must remain at the core of our recovery strategies. We must build back better, and we must build back greener than before. Achieving this will depend on both national climate action and, of course, international cooperation. So let me take each of these in turn. Following that special report in 2019, the UK legislated for net zero by 2050. And since then, we have begun to deliver on net zero as the basis of our recovery plan. In November of last year, the Prime Minister Boris Johnson published a 10-point plan for a green industrial revolution, a £12 billion government investment with the potential to leverage 3 times that from the private sector to create and support up to 250,000 green jobs in the UK. Central to this plan is advancing offshore wind. We aim to quadruple our offshore wind capacity to generate 40 gigawatts by 2030, more than enough power to power every home in the UK. It is vital that we work with Germany and our other neighbours in the North Sea to achieve our collective decarbonisation plans. We also announced a 2030 phase-out for new petrol and diesel vehicles. This includes over £2.8 billion of government support for electric vehicles and its infrastructure. As the COP26 presidency, we are calling on other countries to adopt similar phase-out plans. Following the publication of our plan, the UK came forward with an increased nationally determined contribution under the Paris Agreement, raising it to at least 68% reduction in emissions by 2030. But we did not stop there. At the end of last year, the Prime Minister also announced that the UK will end our support for fossil fuels overseas. We will end our export finance, our aid funding, and trade promotion for new oil, gas and coal projects with only very limited exceptions. And lastly, ahead of COP26, the UK will be coming forward with a comprehensive net zero strategy to build on the Prime Minister's 10-point plan that we discussed. And today we have published an industrialised decarbonisation strategy which sets out how industrial sectors can decarbonise in line with net zero whilst remaining competitive and without pushing emissions abroad. So to the international cooperation piece. National climate change is necessary, but it is not sufficient. Climate change is a global problem, and it needs a global solution. So at the end of last year, on the 5th anniversary of the Paris Agreement, we convened a summit with the UN and France, which brought together 75 world leaders. The summit saw 45 new NDCs, 24 net zero commitments, and 20 new adaptation and resilience plans. Around this time, we also saw new landmark net zero commitments from China, from Japan, and from South Korea, who together emitted 1/3 of all global carbon emissions in 2018. But despite these positive shifts, as last month's UN report sets out, as Sylvia mentioned, we are still worryingly off track to meet the temperature goals of the Paris Agreement and are yet to see enhanced NDCs from many countries. So to remedy this, we need to think big, and we need to use all the opportunities for international progress at our disposal. So that is why the UK will be using its G7 presidency as a stepping stone to COP26. We will seek to bring the G7 together, to commit a group of the world's largest economies collectively to net zero by 2050, and collaborate on ambitious short and medium-term net zero sectoral commitments to support this goal. Through to COP26, we are calling for progress in 4 priority areas. Firstly, reducing emissions through more countries setting net zero targets and ambitious NDCs that align with net zero and keep 1.5 degrees within reach. Secondly, to strengthen adaptation to help the world adjust to the impact of climate change, which we can already see happening today. The UK has launched the Adaptation Action Coalition to convert our call for action from the 2019 UN Climate Action Summit into practical reality. Thirdly, we need to get finance flowing through both public and private channels to deliver the $100 billion a year goal. I know our German colleagues will prioritise this when we co-host the Petersberg Climate Dialogue. The COP26 presidency will also host a Climate and Development Ministerial at the end of this month to gather increased commitments from donors. This last year, we have seen how quickly we can mobilise finance when faced with a crisis. So I know that we can reach the $100 billion goal. The UK is committed to doubling its own international climate finance to £11.6 billion over the next 5 years, and we are calling on other donor countries to similarly raise their ambition. And fourth, we need to enhance international cooperation and collaboration to progress decarbonisation faster across the most important global sectors. So under our COP26 campaigns, we have established the Energy Transition Council, the Zero Emission Vehicle Transition Council, and the Forest, Agriculture and Commodity Trade Dialogues to drive forward real-world action in these key areas. Emissions from road transport in particular are increasing faster than any global sector. We need to double the pace of the transition to electric vehicles and work together internationally to achieve this goal, including by setting phase-out dates for combustion engine vehicles. Given Germany's important position in the global vehicle market, we hope to work particularly closely with our German colleagues in this endeavour in the run-up to COP26. Just to conclude, while it is clear that the global transition to climate neutrality is beginning, it is also clear that more must be done if we are to avert dangerous climate change and seize the opportunities of the transition. The UK's G7 and COP26 presidencies will be key moments to drive this forward. And I know that we have a huge responsibility here, but I am confident that we can rise to this challenge and show that the Paris Agreement is working and that between us we can all deliver. Thank you.